Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to really get into the nuts and bolts of IT leadership today.
hmm
Not just the tech, but the deeper stuff. Integrity, inclusion, global thinking.
Yeah, the things that really separate a good technologist from a true C-suite leader, it's a different game now.
Absolutely. The CIO role, it's transformed, hasn't it? It's not just about keeping the lights on anymore.
Not at all. You're an ethical steward now, a champion for the organization's values.
Yeah.
And sometimes the tech possibilities clash hard with social responsibility.
And that's where real leadership gets tested.
Exactly. That's the crucible.
Okay, so let's make this real. Let's talk about a scenario, something like the MetroCare case from our source material.
Okay.
So imagine you listening right now. You're Priya. You're the CIO at a big healthcare system. Your team's poured resources into this amazing new AI model.
Cutting-edge stuff, designed to predict patient readmission risk. Huge potential.
Right. Massive cost savings, better outcomes for, most patients. It looks like a win-win.
But then the report lands on your desk. The data science team, they found a problem, a big one.
Oh.
The AI. It's less accurate for African American and Hispanic patients. The training data, it turns out, was skewed. It's a classic problem, actually.
So if you roll it out.
You're baking inequality into the system. You're actually making health disparities worse, potentially.
Wow. That's a heavy decision, a real ethical crossroads.
Totally.
So do you, as Priya, hit pause on this huge high-profile project, knowing it means delays, costs, maybe holding back benefits for the majority?
Or do you push forward, knowing you're disadvantaging specific groups? It's not a tech question anymore, is it?
No, it's pure leadership, pure integrity.
And that's our mission today, really, to
Yeah.
give you the tools, the frameworks, drawing mainly from the strategic CIO leadership text to handle situations like that, or even better, to build systems that avoid them.
We're heading 3 core pillars: ethical leadership, diversity and inclusion, and global competence.
The trifecta for modern CIOs.
And we know a lot of you listening are aiming for those top roles. Maybe you're in grad school early in your career.
Yeah.
So stick with us through this series. Really dig into this with us. Maybe share it with someone else on that path. Because just being tech savvy, it's not enough anymore.
Not nearly enough. You need that integrated wisdom.
Okay, pillar 1, ethics. This feels like the absolute bedrock.
It has to be. And the mindset shift for CIOs here is huge. It's moving beyond, technically, can we launch this system?
Right.
To asking, wait, should we launch this system? And then actually building the ethical guardrails,
Yeah.
making sure integrity starts at the top.
Because when you're facing that MetroCare kind of pressure, earnings versus equity,
Yeah.
gut feeling just won't cut it.
No way. You need structure. You need sort of lenses to see the problem clearly. Our sources push us towards 3 main ethical frameworks. Let's start with consequentialism. It's often misused.
Okay, consequentialism. So this is all about the outcomes.
Purely. You judge the action by its results. Does it produce the greatest good for the greatest number? That's the core idea, especially in its utilitarian form.
So if 95% benefit, the harm to the other 5% might be seen as acceptable.
In a strict consequentialist view, potentially, yes. A necessary evil for the greater good.
Applying that to MetroCare, a leader thinking this way might say.
It might argue, look, we deploy the AI now. Yes, it's flawed for some, but it helps the vast majority. Pausing hurts more people overall, costs a fortune. The focus is purely on maximizing that net benefit.
Even if it means trampling on minority rights along the way.
That's the danger. Which brings us to the direct opposite, really, deontology.
Okay, deontology, how does that work?
This one ignores the outcomes completely. It's all about duties, principles, rules. There are certain lines you just don't cross, period. Doesn't matter how good the outcome might be.
So the MetroCare CIO using this lens.
Would slam on the brakes immediately. Their duty, maybe it's do no harm, or the hospital's rule about equal access. That trumps everything.
Yeah.
Any potential gain, any benefit to the majority, it doesn't matter if the action itself violates a fundamental principle.
So a system that's inherently unequal by design is just wrong. Full stop.
Exactly. It's fundamentally wrong, regardless of consequences.
Okay, so we have outcomes on one side, rules on the other. Where does the third framework fit in?
Virtue ethics. This one shifts the focus. It's not about the rules or the outcomes, but about the character of the person making the decision.
Character, like honesty, fairness.
Precisely. Honesty, fairness, accountability, courage. Leaders using this lens ask, does this decision reflect who we are? What kind of organization do we want to be?
That sounds like what Priya did in the MetroCare scenario, asking, are we the kind of place that prioritizes profit over patients?
Exactly. It forces you to align the decision with the organization's stated values and desired identity, even if it's costly. Virtue ethics is about embodying the character you expect.
So the key isn't to just pick one framework.
Absolutely not. That's the mistake. Effective leaders use all three. Consequentialism shows you the potential impact, the scale of good or bad.
Deontology draws the hard lines, the non-negotiables.
And virtue ethics checks if the decision aligns with your core identity. If all three point the same way, great, solid decision.
But if they conflict,
That's your ethical dilemma right there. That's where the real work begins.
and these choices, they don't happen in isolation, right? There's a whole network of people affected.
Precisely. Which leads us straight into stakeholder theory. This was a big shift in thinking thanks to people like Edward Freeman.
Before that, it was mostly shareholder theory, wasn't it? Milton Friedman.
Right, the classic view.
Right.
The company exists solely to make profit for its owners, the shareholders. That's it.
But stakeholder theory says, what?
It says, hold on, organizations have a responsibility to create value for everyone who has a stake in the company. Customers, employees, suppliers, local community, society as a whole, not just shareholders.
So for a CIO, that means when you're rolling out a big IT project, like moving data centers or bringing in automation.
You have to consciously think about the impact on all those groups. How are we protecting customer data? What happens to the employees whose jobs might change? Are we retraining them? What's the environmental footprint of this new tech?
It's a much broader view of responsibility.
Yeah, and the argument is long-term success actually depends on keeping most of these stakeholders happy, or at least considering their interests. If you ignore the community impact or employee morale, it creates risks down the road. It erodes trust.
Okay, so we have the theories, the mindset, but how do you actually do this? How do you operationalize ethics when the pressure's on?
Good question. You need a practical process. Our sources outline a 6-step ethical decision-making framework, the EDMF. It turns the philosophy into something actionable.
6 steps. Let's walk through them. What's step 1?
Step 1, define the ethical dilemma clearly. Sounds basic, right? But people often jump to solutions before they even agree on what the core conflict is. In MetroCare, is it speed versus equity? Profit versus patient safety? Nailing that down is critical.
Okay. Step 2.
Identify all the affected stakeholders. And be thorough. Patients, yes. Shareholders, yes. But also the data scientists, the regulators, maybe future patients, the specific communities being impacted. List them out.
Got it. Step 3.
Evaluate your options using all three ethical lenses we just talked about. Consequentialist, deontological, virtue. This is the heavy lifting. Where do they agree? Where do they clash? What's the cost of that clash?
All right. Step 4 feels important.
It's crucial, especially for governance. Seek diverse opinions. Get input from an ethics committee if you have one, or apply the sunshine test.
The sunshine test.
Yeah. Would you be comfortable with this decision and your reasoning appearing on the front page of the newspaper? It forces transparency. Ideally, you have these ethics or risk review boards set up before a crisis hits. Include legal, compliance, maybe even customer reps.
But that's where the pushback happens, right? The CFO wants Q3 numbers, and the ethics review takes time.
Exactly. That's where the CIO needs courage. You use the documented EDMF process to justify the pause, explaining that skipping this step is actually the riskier move long term.
Okay, makes sense. Step 5.
Make the decision and document everything. Why you chose this path, which ethical lenses you prioritized, the trade-offs you acknowledged. It creates an audit trail, protects you and the organization.
And finally, step 6.
Reflect. After the decision is implemented, look back. What was the actual outcome? What did we learn? How can we improve our process or our ethical guardrails for next time? It's about continuous learning.
So the EDMF forces a proactive, structured approach instead of just reacting when things go wrong.
Precisely. It builds consistency and ensures multiple perspectives are heard before you deploy something potentially harmful.
You know, that MetroCare AI bias issue, it feels like a perfect bridge to our second pillar, diversity and inclusive leadership.
It really is. Because biased data often comes from biased systems, which often reflects, well, a lack of diverse perspectives in the room when those systems were designed.
So D&I isn't just like an HR thing off to the side.
Not even close. It's fundamental risk management. It's a core business strategy. There's the obvious moral case, the fairness argument. But there's also a really compelling competitive business case.
And there's data to back that up.
Oh, absolutely. Deloitte found that companies with inclusive cultures are 6 times more likely to be innovative and agile. 6 times.
Wow.
And Accenture research shows diverse teams are 30% more likely to financially outperform teams that aren't diverse. 30%.
So it's not just the right thing to do, it actually drives better results.
Exactly. The goal is diversity of thought. You need people with different backgrounds, different lived experiences, different ways of seeing the world to challenge assumptions and avoid that dangerous groupthink.
Like maybe someone on the MetriCare data team with closer ties to those underrepresented patient groups might have spotted the bias earlier.
It's highly likely. They might have asked different questions during the design phase.
But just wanting diversity isn't enough, is it? There are real barriers.
Huge systemic barriers. That Women in Tech report, it surveyed thousands of women globally, and the numbers are pretty stark. They paint a picture of cumulative disadvantage.
What kind of numbers are we talking about?
Okay, get this. 72% said they'd experienced gender bias that hurt their promotion chances. 72%.
That's staggering.
And 70% felt promotion processes were unfair, lacked transparency. That breeds distrust right there.
So the system itself feels rigged against them.
In many ways, yes. And here's a tricky one. 67% felt that work-life balance policies meant to help, actually negatively impacted their leadership prospects.
How does that work?
Well, if the underlying culture still rewards face time and constant availability, taking parental leave or using flex time can subtly signal you're less committed, sidelining you from key projects or promotions. It's a double bind.
And the impact of all this?
Leads to this. 85% reported experiencing imposter syndrome, feeling like a fraud, doubting their own ability.
Of course they would, if the system constantly undermines you.
Exactly. It's not an individual failing. It's often a rational response to a biased environment. These things stack up over a career. It pushes talented people out. That's why the CIO has to be an intentional advocate, actively fighting these systemic issues.
So intentional advocacy, that leads to inclusive leadership strategies. What does that look like in practice?
It's about creating a culture where everyone truly feels they belong, where their voice is heard and valued. It's an authentic style.
Yeah.
Deloitte talks about 6 signature traits.
Okay, what are they?
Commitment, really prioritizing D&I. Courage, speaking up, challenging bias, cognizance of bias, knowing your own blind spots in the organizations. Curiosity, genuinely wanting to understand different perspectives. Cultural intelligence, which we'll get to. And collaboration, actively bringing diverse people together.
Those sound like active leadership skills.
They are. It's not passive. Let's look at some CIOs who actually did this. Michael Salas at Suez North America. He saw his IT team was only 9% women.
9%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A huge red flag, right? Both for fairness and for risk. So he showed commitment and courage. He didn't just delegate it, he personally chaired the D&I Council.
What did he actually do?
He mandated diverse interview panels for every hire. And crucially, he trained managers to spot and actively call out unconscious bias right there in the interview debriefs. You know, when someone said, I just didn't click with them, exploring why.
And the result?
In 3 years, women in IT went from 9% to 28%. That's intentional leadership driving change through process.
That's impressive. Any other examples?
Taryn Rodabaugh at Harley-Davidson. She saw a lack of diversity in her IT leadership pipeline.
Okay.
So she showed curiosity and collaboration. She looked outside IT into other parts of the business like finance and operations and recruited talented women from there into key tech leadership roles.
Interesting. Why was that effective?
2 reasons. One, it brought in fresh perspectives, people who didn't think like traditional IT folks, real diversity of thought. And 2, it created visible female role models within IT, which helps combat that imposter syndrome we talked about.
So it's about actively creating opportunities and changing the environment.
Exactly. It's more than just inviting diverse people to the table. It's making sure their contributions are heard and valued. Simple things matter too, like sponsoring employee resource groups or ERGs,
Right.
insisting on diverse candidate slates for every job, and even how you run meetings consciously, making space for quieter or more junior people to speak up before decisions get made.
Okay, so we've covered ethics and diversity. But most big companies operate globally now, which brings us to pillar 3, global and cross-cultural competence.
Absolutely essential. You might be managing teams in India, negotiating with vendors in Germany, ensuring data privacy compliance across the EU. It's complex.
You need a way to make sense of all those cultural differences. Where do we start?
The classic model, still really useful, is Hofstede's cultural dimensions. Came out of research at IBM across dozens of countries way back.
Hofstede, right. Which dimensions are most relevant for IT leaders?
I'd focus on 3. First, Power Distance Index, or PDI. This is about how much a culture accepts unequal power distribution.
So high PDI means people accept hierarchy more readily.
Exactly. Think parts of Asia or Latin America.
Yeah.
Subordinates expect clear direction from the boss, might hesitate to disagree openly. Low PDI cultures, like Scandinavia or the Netherlands, expect more consultation, equality.
How does that affect a CIO?
Your leadership style has to adapt. Rolling out a new global system in a high PDI country, you need clear top-down instructions. Try that in a low PDI country, you'll get pushback. They expect to be asked, involved.
Okay, PDR. What's next?
Individualism versus collectivism. IDV, big one.
Individualism.
Right,
Focus on personal achievement.
right. Self-reliance, competition. Collectivist cultures, common in East Asia, for example, prioritize the group, loyalty, harmony, team success over individual glory.
And that affects motivation.
Hugely. Try motivating a U.S. team only with group bonuses might not work well. Try singling out one person for praise on a highly collectivist team. You could actually cause embarrassment or disrupt team cohesion. You have to tailor rewards and recognition.
Makes sense. What's the third key dimension?
Uncertainty. Avoidance. UAI. How comfortable is a culture with ambiguity, risk, the unknown?
So high UAI means they like structure, rules.
Definitely. Think Germany or Japan. They want detailed plans, clear processes, risk mitigation. They get anxious with ambiguity. Low UAI cultures, maybe the US or UK, tend to be more flexible, okay with improvisation, more tolerant of change.
So implementing something like Agile globally.
You can't just say, we'll figure it out as we go in a high UAI environment. They'll freak out. You need detailed roadmaps, clear roles, lots of training up front. In a low UAI setting, you might have more leeway for experimentation.
These frameworks give you a starting point for understanding.
Exactly. And the Globe study adds a bit more, focusing specifically on leadership. It found some traits, like being charismatic, are pretty much liked everywhere. But others, like participative leadership, not always valued in high PDI cultures, where they expect the boss to be decisive.
So knowing the theory is one thing, but actually using it is another.
Right. Which brings us to the skill, cultural intelligence, or CQ. This is your actual capability to function effectively across cultures. It's more than just knowing facts, it's about adapting.
And high CQ leaders are more effective.
Significantly more effective in global roles.
Yeah.
CQ has sort of three parts. Cognitive CQ is knowing the differences, the Hofstede stuff.
Okay.
Mindfulness CQ is being aware in the moment, noticing friction, paying attention to cues. And behavioral CQ is actually changing your actions, your communication style, to fit the situation.
Let's go back to MetroCare, maybe that Israeli vendor example. How does CQ apply there?
Perfect example. Remember Priya, the CIO, had friction with the Israeli vendor team.
Yeah, the communication style clash, directness.
Right. The Israelis were very direct, which is common there, low context, value speed. Priya's U.S. team felt it was blunt, maybe rude.
So what did Priya do using CQ?
First, cognitive CQ. She knew Israeli business culture often values directness and challenging ideas. She didn't take it personally. Second, mindfulness CQ. She observed the tension, saw her U.S. team reacting negatively.
And the behavioral part?
Pure behavioral CQ. She set up a meeting specifically to address the communication styles. Didn't blame anyone, just said, okay, we have two different efficient styles here. Let's agree on some shared norms.
Like what?
They agreed the Israeli team would bundle questions into one daily update, reducing the email barrage. That maintained efficiency but felt less abrupt to the U.S. team.
Did she coach your team too?
Yes, privately. Reframed the directness as cultural, not personal. And she gently suggested to the vendor lead that maybe adding a simple good morning could help smooth things over on the U.S. side. Small adjustment, big impact.
Was there anything else?
The human touch. Mandatory virtual coffee breaks. No shop talk allowed. Just building rapport. That became crucial when they found out the Israeli team was juggling military reserve duties. Empathy bridged the gap.
So it's about understanding, adapting, and building relationships.
Exactly. And it highlights a key principle for global CIOs. You need standardized core values, things like data security, basic ethics. Those are non-negotiables across cultures. But you need local flexibility in how things get done, management style, communication protocols.
Okay, we've got the pillars. But the real world isn't that neat, is it? There are always trade-offs, gray areas, debates.
Always. No framework is perfect. CIOs live in that messy middle, constantly navigating conflicting priorities.
Like the debate around diversity of thought versus demographic diversity. What's the tension there?
Well, some argue we should only focus on getting different thinking styles, cognitive
Mhm.
diversity, and that demographics, gender, ethnicity, etc. should matter.
But doesn't demographic diversity often drive diversity of thought?
That's the counter argument, and I think the stronger one.
Mhm.
Lived experience shapes perspective.
Hmm.
If everyone in the room comes from the same background, went to the same schools, their diversity of thought might be pretty limited.
So you miss blind spots, like the Metro Care AI bias.
Exactly. Demographic diversity isn't just about fairness, it's strategically necessary to catch those issues. The CIO needs to ensure merit and diversity aren't seen as opposites, but as complementary goals for building the strongest team.
Another big tension, global standardization versus local adaptation.
Oh yeah. The CIO needs consistency for efficiency, security common platforms, unified policies. But then you run into local customs or regulations.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, a strict global anti-bribery policy says no gifts, absolutely essential, non-negotiable core value. But in some cultures, refusing a small customary gift during a negotiation could be a major insult, destroying trust. So the skill is finding the balance. The rule against bribery stands, but maybe there's a process for accepting a nominal gift and donating it, respecting the custom without violating the principle.
Defining the hard lines versus the flexible zones.
Precisely, which also ties into the philosophical tension. Ethical absolutism versus situational ethics. Deontology versus consequentialism, again, really.
So the rules are the rules versus it depends on the situation.
Kind of. Imagine a minor data breach. An absolutist might say, disclose immediately. Honesty is paramount. Duty first.
Okay.
A situationalist might argue, wait 24 hours. Let us patch the vulnerability first before announcing it. Immediate disclosure could alert hackers and cause more harm overall. They're looking at the consequences, the greater good in that specific context.
So who's right?
There's often no single right answer. Effective leaders often try to uphold core principles like never lying, never breaking the law, but allow some flexibility in the gray areas, using that EDMF process to justify the decision transparently. Documentation is key if you take the situational path.
Beyond these internal debates, CIOs also have to grapple with the ethics baked into the tech itself, right? Like cloud computing.
Absolutely. The cloud is transformative, but it brings massive ethical challenges that leaders need to own. Our sources point to at least 4 big ones.
Okay, what's the first?
Privacy violations. The scale is immense. Cloud providers hold so much sensitive data, and misconfigurations or attacks happen. Think about the Blue Bleed leak in 2022, 2.4 terabytes of data exposed from thousands of organizations.
And the cost of breaches is huge.
Financially, yes, millions per breach on average. But ethically, it's a violation of a fundamental right to privacy. The CIO is a guardian of that right, not just the data.
Okay, privacy, what's second?
Environmental impact. Data centers are energy hogs. Cooling alone uses maybe 40% of their power. And often, it's not clean energy.
So cloud migration isn't always green.
Not necessarily. It contributes significantly to greenhouse gases. This violates the principle of the common good, so the CIO faces pressure. Do you choose the slightly more expensive cloud provider that uses renewable energy? How do you justify that cost for the long-term environmental good?
That's a tough sell sometimes. Third challenge.
Economic inequity. The cloud market is dominated by a few huge players. This leads to vendor lock-in. It can be incredibly expensive to switch providers. We saw an example of $400,000 in exit fees for one company.
Wow.
This stifles competition, which ultimately isn't good for overall social welfare from a utilitarian view. It also allows for price discrimination, charging different clients different rates for basically the same thing. It's an uneven playing field.
And the fourth challenge?
Digital inequity, the digital divide. Cloud benefits, AI, analytics, remote work, they all need good internet access. But over a third of the world still isn't connected.
So billions of people are left out.
Completely excluded from the economic and social benefits. And worse, because they aren't providing data, the AI models running on the cloud often ignore them or make unfair decisions about them. It reinforces systemic injustice. CIOs need to think about advocating for equitable access, not just deploying the tech internally.
Man, this shows the CIO role today. It's incredibly complex. It's way beyond just managing technology.
It really is. It's about leadership through complexity, constantly weighing these ethical trade-offs.
So the big takeaway here.
I think it's that C-suite success for a CIO is ultimately measured by 3 things. Integrity, built on understanding those ethical frameworks. Social inclusion, driven by intentional D&I strategies. And cultural agility, powered by real cultural intelligence.
If this conversation helped you think about tackling something like that metrocare dilemma or just reframed IT leadership for you, pass it along, share it, and definitely stick with us for the rest of this series if you're serious about leading at that level.
We definitely covered a lot today. Theory, practice, tough scenarios. It all merges at the top.
So here's the question for you to think about. What would it take for you to step into a CIO's shoes today and truly lead with impact?
Remember, technology drives change, but leadership drives impact. Keep learning, keep growing, and lead the future you want to create.